legends, and welcome to Unbeatable You, where we connect, thrive, and conquer. I'm your host, Brett Robbo, and I'm super grateful for your valuable time. So let's just dive straight in. Keep thriving and enjoy. Tjena, hur är läget, kompis? Vad är du mest tacksam för idag?
Hey, how you doing, buddy? It's great to hear you still
in
great
Swedish.
to hear you still practicing your Swedish, mate.
I've got a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and they're both bilingual, so they're keeping me on my toes with the Swedish. So if you want to roll into a bit of Swedish, it might be okay for you and I practicing at that level, but for everyone else listening, we will take it in English. Malcolm, Larri, welcome back to the show. It's been 12 months, my man. For everyone listening, if you haven't listened to episode 181, please go back. We spoke a lot about confidence, values, and overcoming imposter syndrome, and we heard a bit about your background story too, so it's well worth going back to. It's been 12 months. It was April 2022 that I released that episode, and that shows me how much of a pause I took in the podcast, because we've only released about 25 episodes since then, but we're on the upward trajectory again. So here we are, mate, 12 months later. Welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I actually listened to the podcast we recorded again on the weekend just to see what we spoke about, so I didn't repeat myself. But I was actually I was pleasantly surprised. I thought that guy sounds professional. I was impressed. But what was actually really good was that it was good to go back and listen, because I actually reminded myself of a few things that I needed to be reminded of. So I actually got to coach myself a little bit while I was listening to that, and remember a couple of things that I should be doing that I stopped doing. And, you know,
like
of
what?
course,
What
in
was
life,
the key reminders?
just around having, you know, a strategy around certain things that I was not strategizing anymore in terms of priorities, and you know, as you go through changes in life, as we're going to talk about, you know, it's very easy to get distracted and stop remembering what's important, and to keep the highest things, the highest priorities.
Well said. Just goes to show that you're human, and that reminder that's why we have our priorities and our values front of mind, so that we can keep checking ourselves, because not only does life get quote unquote busy, but also there is a lot of change that comes along with that. And a lot has changed in my life in the last 12 months. A lot has changed in the world in the last 12 months.
Wow.
And I'm sure that a lot has changed in your life in the last 12 months. And one of the things about change is that you are globally sought after and recognized as someone who steps into organizations and hosts talks in front of many people about how to manage change. So I'd love to hear it from you in regards to what are some of the key things? What is it about change? Because we're all going to experience change at a micro level, and also we're going to experience really big changes in our life. And I want to know more about what it means to be able to manage change, and what the differences are in terms of individual and organizational changes.
Yeah, I think let's just take big picture to start with. I think, you know, one of the things that's happened over our generation that's different to our parents, and, you know, just to give some context, I'm turning 55 this summer. So, you know,
almost
if we
halfway.
look at the... Yeah, almost. But one of the things that I think is huge is this generational change between what your parents and my parents experienced in terms of the rate of change that they had to deal with versus the rate of change that we're dealing with in 2023 and beyond. And if we just take, for example, you know, the rate of change that's happened since the introduction of the smartphone. So, you know, for people listening, I'm holding up my iPhone. I think it's an iPhone 14. You know, it's this incredible device that can record high definition video. I could literally film a film, edit it, put it together, and distribute it and promote it all online, all from this handheld device that's walking around in my pocket with me all day long. And so if we just look at the rate of change that's happened since the smartphone was introduced, since the iPhone was introduced, just think about how many businesses and business models have emerged simply because of this thing called apps. And the rate of change that we've dealt with just since the introduction of the iPhone. And now we're going into the age of AI and robotics and metaverses, which is going to be a change that is said to be exponentially faster than anything we've experienced to date. And so for people who are living now versus previous generations, our parents got to experience the world going through incremental change. And I lived the first half of my life before the internet, basically. And when I tell that to young students that I teach, they just can't even fathom this. It's like we didn't even know what the internet was. We had never heard the word. I literally still remember the first time somebody told me about this thing called the internet, and I just had no idea what they were talking about. But our parents experienced, change, things like war, the Great Depression, all kinds of challenges. But those challenges generally came slowly, and they were known kinds of changes. But what we see now is exponential change. And so what we need to really be thinking about is how are we going to manage change as a personal strategy and a professional strategy, because the rate of change that we have to deal with now is so extreme already, and it's ramping up to be like completely, well, I would say inhumane, to be honest. I don't think it's going to be good for us. But we actually now need to think about managing change as a key skill set in our life, and to actually have a whole toolbox of how we manage change for ourselves, just personally and professionally. Because if you do not do this, change is going to eat you alive, and your life is going to become incredibly stressful. And so this topic, managing people, managing change, has become my most popular workshop over the last 12 months, because companies recognize that people are not coping. And most people who come to me for coaching, they're coming to me because they want to have a life change. They want to make a pivot in their life. They want to manage a change in their life in the best possible way. And they recognize they do not have the tools to do that. And so that is what my work is becoming increasingly focused on. And so I think it's a really good time for people to stop and ask, do I understand how I manage change? What are the strategies that I have? And are those strategies going to scale? Because I'm always telling my coaching clients, you've got a lot of habits that you've been doing for a long time, and all of them will work until they scale to a certain point, right? And you must know this as someone who's working with people on the physical side of health and well-being, is that you can have a lot of habits that are not great habits, but they're fine. They don't really affect you until you scale them up. And then suddenly they either become toxic, or they become unworkable, or they become unmanageable. So everything that we do, even let's say drinking water as an example, you can drink 3 or 4, 5 glasses of water a day and it'll be good for you. If you drink 50 liters of water a day, it will kill you. So everything in the wrong dose becomes poison. And our strategies and our ways of managing change, if we can't scale them up in a healthy way, they're going to become toxic for us. And so I think it's a great time for us, just as an umbrella to start this conversation, is personal and professional strategies for managing change are absolutely critical. And you have to know yourself, and you have to be able to manage yourself through change.
I'm really keen to dive into and hear some strategies or some of the things that might go into the toolbox. But what I'm most interested in is what you mentioned. You said that a lot of people aren't coping. So a lot of organizations are getting you in to run these workshops because they notice that their staff aren't coping, or they identify that their staff probably won't cope with this drastic change that is it's coming. It's already upon us, and it's going to keep increasing. So what are some signs for individuals, for them, if they're kind of wondering now, well, am I managing change or aren't I? What are some signs of us not coping?
Well, I think one of the things that's happened, and I'm not sure what the situation in Australia is, but over the last, let's say, 3-4 years, I've seen this pandemic of burnout in Sweden that I've never seen in my 40 years of professional life. There is this tipping point people have reached where they simply cannot cognitively, emotionally, and probably physically manage the rate of change and stress and choice that is being put upon their systems. And, you know, I'm pretty old school, and, you know, we're both Australians. It's like, shut up and deal with it, kind of push on.
Well, she'll be right,
mate. She'll be right, mate. You know, in Australia, I often do workshops on cross-cultural communication, and I talk about what is the unspoken rule of your culture. And I always say the unspoken rule of Australia is don't complain. You know, it's like it's the unspoken rule of Australian communication. It's like if I ask you how you are, the unspoken rule is you're going to say I'm great, even if you're not. Right? That's how it's been. And I often joke, you know,
hence
in
why
Australia,
we struggle with some mental illnesses and bottling things up and the shame spirals.
100%. Yeah, but you know, I always say in Australia, if you get hit by a bus and you're on the ground and all your limbs have been rearranged, and a group of people, you know, stand around and say, "How are you?" It's like, yeah, don't worry about it. I'll be fine, mate.
I'll be right, mate.
Chuck me some Band-Aids and I'll crawl to work. But what I think's really happened is we've reached a point where people's ability to manage themselves in their professional life, their ability for their brain to cope with what's happening, their ability to calm their physical body and their nervous system and their adrenal system, and you can speak about this more than I can. I'd love to have your feedback and thoughts on this. I think we've just reached a point where we have a confluence of all of these factors coming together, and we're seeing an epidemic of burnout, people not coping, mental fatigue. It's huge. And people quitting. There's another movement called quiet quitting where people are going to do the minimum because they feel overloaded. I just think what we're seeing is the end of a lot of strategies that have worked for a long time. People are moving into new environments, digital environments, new environments, ways of working. And all of these old strategies do not work or match the environment. And as they try and put a square peg into a round hole, day after day, you're seeing a lot of burnout. So just imagine the amount of information that a person with a smartphone, social media, email accounts, Slack accounts, pop-up conversations all day on their computer. Imagine how much information their brain is processing and the amount of distraction they have to deal with and fight with to stay productive on a daily basis. So back in 2004, when I was doing my first international workshops on customer service for my dear friends Val and Jeff G, who gave me my first speaking opportunity. Shout out to Val and Jeff.
Shout out to those legends, whoever they are.
Yeah, God
created
bless
the
them.
launching platform.
Yeah, they created the monster. So, but during that workshop back then, I said the average person or consumer today is getting 80 times more information than their grandparents did. So can you imagine what that number would be today? How much information we're exposed to, and we're also exposed to it in micro bites. TikTok videos, pop-up questions on, all day long on your Microsoft Teams. People, hey, will you be in the meeting? This, like everything you're doing being constantly interrupted by anyone in the world at any time it suits them. And so I think when we talk about what are the signs we see inside of organizations is people are distracted, people are burnt out, they actually feel overworked. But when I actually coach people, the tasks they're given are within their scope and their abilities. But the way we're managing tasks, the way we're actually delegating tasks, the expectations we have on people to be available has actually created this sort of monster of distraction and burnout and fatigue, which leads people to be doing too many things for too many people. And I got to tell you a funny story, because I was in Oslo working with a group of senior leaders in January. It was my first gig of the year, and I had all of the senior leaders from this company in a room, and I said, okay, first exercise, please write down all of the priorities and projects you have, one per Post-it note, and put them up on the wall. And so all of these leaders started writing down all the projects and the priorities they had for 2023, and they put them up on the wall, and it was a blizzard of Post-it notes. And I said to the leaders, I said, have a look at this. It's January 14th or something like that, I think it was, the workshop. Is this realistic? Is this workload, is this level of projects, are this many priorities realistic? And 100% of the senior leaders in the company said it was completely unrealistic. January 14th, senior leaders in a company, they already know that they're overloading their people. They already know they're overloading their capacity, but still they do it. And so it was a great exercise, and it's like, why is this happening? What is happening that allows us to continually overload our people and burn them out? And then we had a very big discussion about that. I won't go into the whole thing now, but basically, one of the problems with modern life is it's easy to create ideas, it's easy to create projects. It's still hard to execute projects, and people get burnt out with far too many priorities.
So each of those projects individually, maybe they can look at one of them and say, yeah, of course, that's within our scope. But when you have multiple of those across multiple sections, it becomes way too far-fetched. Well, I want to go back to what you were saying there about the cognitive function, because what I'm hearing you say is that there's all of these distractions and demands on the individual, and therefore their attention is being taken very far. So they're going dopamine hit from a thing like a TikTok to also running on adrenaline and cortisol. And then all of a sudden, or not all of a sudden, then their days and their outside work distractions are all, or demands are also requiring and taking those neurochemicals and keeping those hormones and neurochemicals raised. They're, in general, and this is what I find with a lot of the people that I work with too, is we operate at a brainwave frequency that is, it's fine, we can do that during the day, but not 24 hours a day or almost 24 hours a day with the lack of sleep. And the heart rate variability is very much affected as well. So we've got a very scattered and a very low heart rate variability. So our ability to actually calm our nervous system, to lower the adrenaline and the cortisol, and to have healthy hits of dopamine that come from things like an ice bath and breath work, as opposed to being stolen from these attention seekers. So this burnout piece that you talk about is definitely, from a neurochemical and a physiological perspective there, that makes sense. And then when you look at things emotionally, people start to, I'm not working with the scale that you are, but I'll ask you the question, do you start to see that that's when people emotionally start to be challenged as well, because they feel like, I'm not good enough, I'm a failure, this is not what I signed up for, and they start to create all of these stories and the meaning around the situation, whereas if we look at it for what it really is, with a wall full of Post-it notes, and we take away a hell of a lot of those Post-it notes, we can actually not burn out our staff or ourselves.
Yeah, and thank you for talking about the whole thing around dopamine and cortisol and all of these things, because however you want to think about the human animal, we are trapped inside this meat suit, and we have to do everything that we think, all of the impact we make, all of the dreams we have, all the love we want to experience, all the connection we want to experience. We have to do it through the meat suit. We don't get to disconnect from the body. And so I think that, we went through a period where we became, how should I explain this? All right. I should warn the audience, also a spiritual hippie, all right?
Bring it on. We love spiritual hippies.
But I think we've been through this period, and we're probably still in it, we're in this huge ego phase of the human animal, where we believe that we're infinitely scalable, unassailable, we can optimize endlessly for more and more productivity, etc., etc. And I just think we've reached the end of that ego trip that we've been on, that we could just endlessly work, endlessly produce, endlessly make money, endlessly buy Lamborghinis, all this whole nonsense of being I always talk about, the Gillette razor commercials, being the man on the Gillette razor commercial who drives his beautiful car home, and the beautiful wife opens the door and the kids run out and the dad pick them up and throw them in the air and they're all happy. And this kind of messaging that we've had and this trajectory we've been on, I just think we're reaching an endpoint of it. And humans need to understand their own mission and vision for their life and keep that mission and vision a priority and have something that is a legacy that they're working towards, so that what they're doing has meaning instead of just doing more meaningless things. And most people, if you look at what they did during their busy 12-hour day, has very little meaning to them. They are doing a lot of things that bring them very, very little meaning, very high cortisol, dopamine, stress, distraction, everything else. And it's a perfect cocktail for burning out and breaking down, isn't it? I mean, if you go to work and at the end of the day, you're not fulfilled and you're exhausted and you're burnt down, I mean, how long is that sustainable? So personal sustainability is what companies are really asking me to help them with. I'm helping them manage change, but most of the time they're saying, can you please teach us sustainable leadership? And by the way, that workshop I ran, for the leaders where they put the Post-it notes on the wall was about sustainable leadership. Stop burning your people to the ground. And that workshop was really looking at, you guys can put as much as you want in the top of the funnel, and for you it's weightless, but as it goes through the funnel, it becomes work, stress, projects, deadlines for other people below you. And are you being realistic about what they should be able to deliver? And the answer is always no. They're not being realistic. So take a step back and look at what you're putting in the top of the funnel as a leader. But I think that, this whole thing that you talked about getting dopamine and cortisol hits that are not sustainable. And I mean, you and I both know that if you get to a certain stage, it's going to affect your sleep. And then if your sleep's affected, then you're going to go to coffee. And then you get, and I'm as guilty as this as anybody. I love the ego trip of being in demand, but I also have to recognize that it's at a certain point, it's not sustainable. So how do you manage that change? And I'm going through it myself. I don't want to sit here and pretend that I've got a perfectly set up life where I'm never stressed, never overworked, or I don't overbook myself. We all do it, but we also have to center ourselves on something. And I believe that we should orientate our lives towards fulfillment, not happiness. And I can explain why in a minute. But we should orientate ourselves towards fulfillment, not happiness. And that we should be building a life that is sustainable for us and for the people that we are serving. Because all of us are serving somebody, a wife, a husband, a parent, a brother or sister, children. If you're a leader, you're serving your teams. Everybody's serving somebody, and you have to be well enough spiritually, physically, mentally, and fulfilled enough physically, spiritually, mentally, to be of service to people, because if you're not doing that, you're not going to have a sustainable life where you're able to manage change. And so let's just put some threads together here, which is, we talked about at the beginning managing change as a skill that we now need to master for personal and professional development. And I think we need to make some fundamental shifts in how we think about what we strive for. And most people are striving to be happy, and I think that's a really bad idea. I think you should strive to be fulfilled. And
Happiness
I think
is a
you
byproduct,
really need
right?
happiness is a byproduct. I think of happiness as very transient. I mean, on any given day, you might experience happiness, and then 10 minutes later, you're massively stressed because of an email you got. And then you're frustrated because your program on your computer's not working. And then you go into a meeting and you're bored because it's a meeting you shouldn't have said yes to. And then you have lunch with a colleague and you're happy again. And so happiness comes in and out of your day. It's just a sugar hit of emotion. It's very transient. But fulfillment, if you're actually doing things that are in line with your values, in line with your mission in life, in line with the legacy you'd like to leave behind, you're filling your cup up with fulfillment, and then it will overflow with happiness. But if you don't have any fulfillment, any happiness you have is going to be very, very surface. It's going to be very transient. And that's why I always know when I'm not fulfilled, because I go out and start buying things that I don't need. Like I went out and bought 2 watches at the end of last year, and I was like, what did I do that for? It was like a very clear sign to me that something was not being fulfilled, because I start buying things that I just don't need. And
so your awareness
myself.
is really, really strong with that. What would you say to them, people who have a business and they might have got into that and been fulfilled in the beginning, or they're in a job where they felt the fulfillment and the byproduct of happiness and they felt on purpose, but it has become overwhelming because of this great amount of change? What do you say to people like that in this ability to be able to manage change and find that again?
Yeah, so I think everybody who has a business goes through phases where they run the business and other phases where the business runs them. Have you experienced that?
Yeah, guilty of being human in the business world.
You're right. And so sometimes, the business is overwhelming and it starts running you. And what I would say is that we can take a deep dive into strategies for managing change in a minute, but just as a big picture, if you run a business and you are unhappy, you should stop and think about, should you have the business? Because for me, the only point of having a business is it should increase your fulfillment, your happiness, your well-being, and your bank account. And if your business and the way you're running it is not working for you, why do you have a business? You've created something that is delivering you stress and unhappiness. That doesn't sound like a great recipe for a great life. You could just as well go out and get a job, take away most of the stress, and make enough money to live. So I think if you have a business, it's a constant question to ask yourself is, how do I set this business up in a way that is best for me? The business must serve me first. Now, a lot of people say a business should serve, and I'm talking now about, smaller businesses. Obviously as businesses get bigger, they get complicated. But if you have a small business, the business has to serve you first. You are the business's number one customer. So please make sure that you build the business in a way, and always as you manage change and you adapt the business, that it serves you first. And right now I've got a journal, and it's got written on the front of it, the next 10 years. And it's all about, how am I going to pivot, adapt, evolve my business? Because I'm celebrating 10 years of my business that I started when I moved to Sweden, this month. And so what do I want the next 10 years to be? Because obviously I can make a living doing this, but how can I make an amazing life doing this? And the business has to serve you first. And most people forget that, and the business starts to run them, and all the priorities are for the customers. They come last in the business. You've got to flip that model around. The business has to serve you first. And in terms of managing change, we're moving in a lot of directions, so I'm just trying to keep some guardrails on the conversation. But in terms of managing yourself in a business, I think there's a few things that really, really count, which is, like I said before, having a vision and mission of why you started the business and what you want the business to achieve. Some businesses, like mine, have a very big mission behind it, like, I would love to uplift and inspire millions of people to have a bigger vision of what's possible for them in their life when I'm done. So that's a very big mission I have. I want to create a big impact, and I know impact is your highest value as well. But other people have built businesses just so they can sell the businesses and make some money, and that's fine. There's a lot of ways to make a business, but what is going to be the impact and legacy that you're trying to create, and make sure that you're constantly centering yourselves on that vision and legacy and mission for the business. So whatever it is that you started, even if it's a plumbing company, let's say, or a carpentry company, which is in some ways a simple business, right? People hire you, build something, you get paid, next job. Build, get paid. So in that sense, but you could also have inside a company like that a vision and mission of the kind of service you want to give, the kind of reputation you want to have, the kind of working environment you want to have. Maybe you have a plumbing company and you have a vision that you're going to empower over your career 50 apprentices to start their own thriving businesses and create amazing opportunity for another 50. Whatever it is, you have to have a vision and mission for yourself that you can go back to. Otherwise, business is just going to be how many for how much. And I think over time, that is a very unrewarding way to run your business, run your life. It's great for the business, but it's bad for your life.
Is that in alignment too with, I love this stuff, and a lot of the guys that I work with, we talk about definitely a 3 to 5 year vision, mission. We talk about purpose and choosing purposes in different areas of your life. And then in regards to the business side of things is also that mission and impact piece. And the impact piece, I love connecting it with, there's a B1, G1 model, buy one, give one type thing. So you can have things automated where, say if it's on that builder example that you gave, that every time they win a job, then $50 or $500, whatever they want it to be, goes towards, and then they get to choose. It might plant a tree in their local area. It might buy a bike for, this is what I was doing for a while, where it was buy a bike for a young girl in Cambodia, which means then that she can have transport to get educated, which gives like a 80% less chance for her to be sex trafficked, and different things like that, whatever it might be. But just that brings purpose and a drive to what they're already doing. And I say to people, and then get your team on board as well. Like, get them excited to know that when they win work for you, or when they're behind the scenes, if they're not doing sales, or if they feel like their job's a bit mundane, allow them to feel like a part of this process and make it a whole team collaboration where, because of them, because of all of you doing this together, this is the impact that we're making together.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's a really beautiful thing. And, I think you see this all the time, that once people have enough in their life, I mean, I make enough money that my wife and I and my family, she works as well, and we have a really high quality of life by any measure. We're doing really well. And the things that have made me really happy has been giving money to a Somalian refugee, and the biggest camp, what do you call it, refugee camp in Kenya, actually the biggest refugee camp in the world. And, I'm helping him, giving him some money from time to time has been really, we were able to help him and giving him some support. And now he's been able to, after, I think it was 30 years he was in the refugee camp, he's finally been moved to Canada and is living in this amazing life in Canada all of a sudden. It's amazing. And my friend Claire, she, when she started making money from her business and had enough and realized, hey, I really want to pay it forward, I think she sponsored 200 girls to go to school in Africa. And I think these kinds of things are very, very fulfilling. And, I'm just about to give away my first mentorship program where I'll be giving away a year's worth of coaching and 10,000 krona to a young person to just mentor them for a year as a celebration of having a business for 10 years because, rather than buying myself, another watch that I don't need or another suit that I don't need to celebrate, I'd much rather give it away, pay it forward. It feels better, but it's also more fulfilling. And if it's more fulfilling, it'll make me happier. So it's not just something that you do that doesn't benefit you. Being altruistic and having a vision and a mission and paying it forward is one of the best ways for you to feel good. So you do good, and you called it B1 get one. Is that right? What do you called it?
The B1 G1 model is the way that they automate it. Yeah, like a buy one give one type model. And
buy one give one.
Yeah.
But
and there's many different ways to contribute.
Yeah, but you could also say, I'm going to give away time and money, get back fulfillment and happiness. It's like a give to get kind of situation.
Absolutely.
So you definitely, there's definitely going to be benefit from that for you and for society. But overall, think about something that would be fulfilling for you. And we're all wired differently. I know people who are on a mission just to make as much money as possible, as quickly as possible, because their highest value is freedom. And they'd never want to have to think or worry about money ever again. God bless them. If that fulfills them, if having that big bank account fulfills them and sets them free and gives them that sense of purpose to live their life in the way they want to live, that's fine. We're all wired differently. But you have to have something to focus on because otherwise the day-to-day busyness of life is just going to eat you alive.
Yeah, well said. And I like to elaborating on that too, because a lot of people would be thinking, yeah, but like I've built the business to this much, I can't just give it away, or I feel stuck within this. So that's where I know we're not saying everyone just, if you're stressed and under pressure and you're not fulfilled, don't just throw it all in. There's ways that you can restructure it. And I guess this comes into the strategy piece in other ways as well. What are some other strategies in regards to managing change for us?
Great. So let's start pivoting towards strategy now. But, I love what you said about don't throw it away. And I think that one of the things we need to think about is when it comes to sort of pivoting your business back towards something that's more fulfilling, we're not asking you to throw your business away. Why would you? You've worked hard on it. But just recognize that if your business is really small, it's a speedboat and it can turn on a dime. Like you can pivot quickly. And quite easily. And if your business is bigger and it's big, now it's a super tanker and it takes 7 kilometers to turn around, not 770 meters. So the bigger your business is, the slower it is to turn, but you can turn it around. It's the rate of change that you can turn it on. But let's just talk about strategy in general, about how people manage change, because I think that one of the really interesting things about the human animal is most people have no idea how they manage change. So on the last podcast, I did a little bit of coaching with you, and I think it was quite fun. So I might, if it's okay with you, I'd like you to be my guinea pig again, if that's okay.
Oh, I'm honoured. Please do.
Okay, great. So there's 2 main strategies people have for managing unwelcome and unexpected change in their life. And I'm going to generalize here. There's some specifics to this, but if you just get these 2 big chunks, if you just look at these two main categories, it's actually very, very powerful for managing yourself and helping to manage other people. So the two main categories people fall into when it comes to managing change, there's two orientations. And I just want to say before I tell you what they are, one is not better than the other, okay? However you're wired, it's fine. Just lean into it. So you have security orientation and opportunity orientation. Security and opportunity. So security people, when unexpected and unwelcome change is put upon them, how do they respond? Security people, and I'm a security people, feel suddenly very unstable. Oh, what's happening? Why does this happen? Often get a big wave of emotion moving through them. And then they need to go into planning and data collection to understand what they could do, what the options would be for them to be able to manage this change. So security person, suddenly something unwelcome and unexpected turns up in their life, personally or professionally. They feel really, really unstable. What am I going to do? Why is this happening to me? Lots of emotion happening. The very prefrontal cortex shuts down. They go into fight and flight mode, and they have to wait for that emotion, that adrenaline to pass through before they can go back into logical thinking. They start making lists. They start listing options. They start thinking about a strategy for how to get out of this problem and into opportunity. That's me. I'm one of those people. When something happens, I know I've got 3 minutes of emotion that's going to move through me. I've got to let that emotion go through, and then I can go back to logic and reason. But I'm pretty much a drama king for 3 minutes. Why me? Yeah. So I often go into a broom closet, scream, have a little tantrum, and then come back out and let the emotion go through, and then I can work with it. That's security orientation. Opportunity people, unexpected and unwelcome change happens, and immediately they go into action. Oh, let's do this. We could do that. Why don't we start doing this? I could call Greg, and we could, and immediately they're already suggesting straight into ideas and executing ideas, and they manage unexpected and unwelcome change by taking immediate action. And these are the two main strategies. So let me ask you, Coach Brett, when unexpected and unwelcome change happens to you, are you a security person or an opportunity person? And let's talk about this let's talk about this in terms of business. Let's just put it in context of business for make the conversation a little bit more focused.
Based on the examples that you gave, I have to say opportunity. I'm ready to call Greg.
Great.
I'm looking for. I'm definitely not feeling the raise of emotion and needing it to pass through. Definitely based on what you said, I feel opportunity.
Okay, so you see opportunities, like whatever's changed is a new opportunity. You know, whatever the unexpected and unwelcome change is, there's an opportunity here. That I couldn't get Malcolm on the podcast, but that means I could probably get back that other lady that spoke last week about her energy drinks and see what she's doing and give people an update on that. And immediately you just go into problem solving, action. But if you don't know this about yourself, and this is an unconscious behavior, you don't have any power to now either lean into it, iterate that, start to think about how could I do it better, how could I organize that strategy better, but also having some awareness of how that impacts the people around you. So now I'd like to ask you, what do you think, based on what I said, your wonderful Swedish wife, and Brett and I both have Swedish wives, we're blessed, but what do you think your wife's orientation? Is she security or opportunity?
She's opportunity on steroids.
Opportunity on steroids, even more than you.
She's even more than me. She's into
Okay.
that mindset, and yeah, straight away.
Great. And so one of the things that I talk about often is that the key difference between these two strategies is not their value, because they're both valuable. They're both equally valuable, and especially in organizations, you really want to have a good mix of both. But one of the key things is that opportunity people move through change very quickly. They can move into and through changes very quickly, and they're able to, execute on ideas quickly. What do you think happens? Let's say you're married to a person who's super security and cannot move quickly through change and needs to plan and strategize and get more data and more information. What do you think would turn up in your relationship as a result of that, Brett?
Tension, judgment, lack.
Yeah. It's going to be stressful. It's going to be really, really stressful, because you're going to be wanting to go really, really fast, and the other person's going to be wanting to go much, much slower. And so what you end up with in relationships, in teams, in companies, is people sitting in rooms who are completely unaware of their change strategies and how they manage change. And it creates a lot of friction, a lot of tension, and a lot of judgment. I did a really fun workshop last week for this, I won't mention the company, but a really well-known app, one of the best, most successful apps around. And we were talking, and it's like, I asked people, are you security or opportunity? And this guy says, I'm really a super security person. And I said, yeah, please stand up. Who's an opportunity person? Yeah, I'm a super opportunity person, like Marie, opportunity on steroids. And I said, so when this person wants to go fast, this opportunity person wants to go fast, what are you saying to yourself as a security person? And the security person said, oh, I think they're irresponsible. I think they're pushy. I think they are careless. And then I said to the opportunity person, you're there suggesting all of these great ideas of how you could solve the problem to the security person, and you want to go fast. How do you feel when they're rejecting all of your ideas? And it's so frustrating. They're so negative. They're so pessimistic. They have a problem for every solution. And so you get all of this tension simply because people do not know how they manage change. And if you just give your team these simple distinctions, and I have many other layers underneath that, I won't go into them today because it gets more complex as we start to build maps of how we manage change. But I just get people to just, which one are you at work? Let's just say specifically at work, because sometimes people have different orientations for different roles in their life. You might be a opportunity person at work, but at home you might be super security because of different things. But let's just, most people have let's say a default way of managing change, their default style, the one they always go to as their natural way of managing it. But if we can just know what orientation we are as a starting point, isn't that a huge advantage to know?
Brilliant.
And that when I'm talking with my business partner and they're the opposite to me, that I can help them manage change through their style. But even if I just focused on myself, so you're an opportunity person, you love to you love to generate options and execute on them. So that is both a winning strategy and a problem when you start to scale it. Everything, no habit scales infinitely. So can you give me some examples where that strategy has not been good for you? Just going forward.
Actually, that was probably a pretty big contributor in the last quarter of last year when we had a lot of challenges. So when I hear opportunity strategy, I also think optimistic in that regard. And
Yep.
so me being very optimistic and my gorgeous wife being optimistic on steroids, there comes a point when optimism isn't enough.
Right.
So we often see through the lens of optimism and just trust. It's not the, oh, she'll be right, mate. Like we have a little bit of strategy behind it, but probably not enough. So,
Right.
to get into the specific details, it might require too much story, but there's those clear signs to me where it hasn't supported. And also another way where it's the weaker side of that is not slowing down to reflect enough in certain times to know, okay, that worked really well, cool, next thing. But then when it doesn't work, or if there's a time to pivot, I'm not sure why, because I haven't reflected enough on the growth of the business and what has worked well and what didn't work well. Haven't taken that time in the process to then get to this point now. I'm like, oh, hang on, it's time to pivot, and I'm going to have to pivot based on what I know now, because everything else, or not everything, but I haven't taken the time previously or had a security person with me to make all of those decisions.
Yeah, and I think that people like, let's say, an opportunity person on steroids. I haven't met your wonderful wife yet. I'm looking forward to that. But she's what I would call a plan A person, which is they invest everything into plan A because they're super optimistic, they're super excited about plan A, and there's usually no plan B or C. Because in their world, you can always get another plan A. If there's another problem, we'll just keep going forward. And that strategy really works when the problems aren't significant. Now, I believe when it comes to stress, and I'd love your thoughts on this, Coach, is everybody can manage a certain amount of stress in different areas of their life, but when stress starts to stack up in a lot of areas in life, I call it stacked stress, that's when people start to fall apart and not cope. It's like everybody can manage a little bit of stress in all of the areas of their life, but if something's not working in one area of your life, like really not working, like I'm really struggling to get a job, that's fine. But if you also are struggling to find a school for your kids, and if you're also struggling to get a visa, and you're also struggling, whatever it is, fill in the blanks, with other things, that stacked stress will quickly lead to overwhelm. So what I would say
absolutely. Stress is a great thing, but it's the ability. So it's like what you're talking about with strategies. It's strategies to manage stress. So yeah, absolutely what you're saying. And that's for everyone listening that knows our story from the back end of last year, that's what it got like. It was every area, or almost every area of our life all of a sudden had a lot of stress.
Right. So you had housing stress, transport stress, work stress, probably money stress.
Family
as a
stress.
result of all those other stresses, or whatever it is, and so they all start to stack up. And even if you've studied, trained, worked, I've been working on this for 40 years. I get into situations of stacked stress, and it's like, it's overwhelming. You are going to experience that. If you've got a pulse, you will experience it from time to time. But one of the things you can think about as an opportunity person is, okay, I always love my plan A, but as I get more responsibility and I have more possible downside of plan A not working out, probably a good idea for me to start having at least a plan B in place for these fundamental areas of my life. So I think this is, and again, I'm not judging at you at all or anybody at all, because everybody's strategy works when it works and it doesn't when it doesn't. But the great thing is, every strategy we have, we can iterate, optimize, upgrade, get better at. And one of the things that I'm really passionate about is, and I'd love to do a little chapter on this. We can finish this, this part of the podcast, and we'll go to it. Is what do I need to pay attention to go to the next level? When I go to the next level, it's going to require me to pay more attention to certain things. And this is something that maybe you could think about. As I build the business, as I get bigger, have bigger clients, more responsibility, I've always relied on plan A, and I've always been good at generating plan A's. And if plan A doesn't work out, I just make another plan A, right? But having plan A and plan B now might be something that you would like to think about. Now, for a security person, a lot of the change for them, a lot of the challenge for them in the rate of change that's happening is they are going to have to learn to move forward with less and less information and to be able to begin without an end plan in mind. The new ways of living and working are going to require us to be able to live in higher levels of uncertainty, but be certain we can manage the uncertainty.
Just repeat that. I think that's really powerful.
Okay, I'll say it again. So security people, the challenge for them now and in the future is they are not going to be able to get all the information they need to have a perfect plan in place that will make them feel secure enough that they can now move into opportunity and move forward. They are going to be forced to deal with more and more uncertainty as a normal way of living and being for them to be able to move forward. So they need to now become certain that they can manage uncertainty. And so what I work with
How do we do that?
Yeah. So with a lot of security people, what I say is, let's optimize your security strategy. So let's say as an opportunity person, as a security person myself, I need to have a certain amount of information to move forward. Could I work out the minimum amount of information I need to move forward and take action? So instead of having a list of 10 options, could I get it down to 3 or 4? Could I get it down to 3 and then take action and then get feedback on that thing? Or you see a lot of people who are security people wanting to go into over planning. And so could you as a security person, instead of trying to plan the whole thing out, which is no longer really an option in life and business because things change so much, instead of having a 10-year plan for your business, could you have a 3-month plan? Could you just focus on the next 3 months instead and put all of your focus and certainty into that shorter time frame? Because that's what the world is going to demand from you, whether you like it or not. I mean, I think it's great to have a 10-year plan in terms of an overview, but in terms of strategy, it's impossible. You know, it's like you can have this big umbrella view of what the next 10 years looks like, but in terms of execution, there's no way of knowing. I mean, how many businesses got disrupted because of apps? How many businesses could function because apps are invented? You know, I was thinking about Netflix today in terms of apps. So, most people have Netflix, HBO, Disney, Paramount or Amazon. They have like a whole bunch of these things. If every one of those channels required you to have a shoebox-sized device in your house to receive that channel, you wouldn't have 5 channels. You'd have 1, maybe 2, right? Because otherwise your living room would be full of these things. So technology changes what we choose, how we choose it, what customers are buying, how they buy it. So we really need to become incredible adaptation machines. And your job is to know how you manage change and then optimize that to your absolute advantage. And so one of the things you can do, Brett, as a second step, to this process is, okay, I'm an opportunity person. As my responsibilities grow, I probably should have at least a plan B. But also what should I be, if I look at my strategy at a deeper level and I take a few more steps, it's like, okay, I immediately go into action. I start calling people. What do I then do with the information? How do I make a decision based on the options that I have? We can actually go down that rabbit hole even further and sort of map out your whole strategy for managing change. And then we can look at every single point of that strategy and optimize it. And that's what we all need to be doing, whether we like it or not. We have to become masters of change.
So what I'm hearing is that I can't just outsource someone who's security and just stick with my opportunity perspective and just and know that they're security. So and just get them to call me on it and know that we meet in the middle. I still have to analyze my strategies for managing change to be able to actually manage it and handle it better.
Yeah, well, I think if when I say business partnerships, I think, all of the best business partnerships are where people fill in the gaps of the other person. They're not two of the same kind of people. They're like a really perfect fit of two different kinds of personality strategies. And I often see business partners that are really successful where one is the opportunity person and one's a security person. Look, there's nothing wrong with outsourcing that security side to people. Like, I'm not a detail person, so I like to outsource detailed things to other people. I like to, keep a quite a helicopter view. Even though I'm a security person, there's a lot of levels of detail that are boring for me, so I don't do it, But I think in your case, one of the things to think about is, and maybe we could pivot to, what I was mentioning before about what do I pay attention to? Because I think whenever we go to the next level of anything, we need to pay attention to different things, right? It's like that is actually the game. And often we think it's about the actions we're going to take, but it's actually every single time in my life and in my business I go to another level, I usually have a couple of fails when I go to that level. And I've realized it's because
when you go to the level or just before you go to the next level? Like, is it a warning sign?
No, when I go to the next level.
Okay.
Like when I go to the next level, I usually go there and then there's a couple of like small fails. Nothing catastrophic, but a couple of things that don't go well. And it's because when I go to that new level, I'm still paying attention to the things that I was paying attention to before at the level below.
So like that's saying what got you to where you are won't get you to where you want to go.
Yeah. And we think of that in terms of behaviors, but we actually also need to think about that in terms of what we pay attention to. And so what I realized is, and I kind of went through a little bit of a challenge at the end of last year because my business grew by 65% last year. I really went up 2 or 3 levels in terms of the customers and expectations that customers had of me. And also, as I said, I think on the last podcast, reputation creates expectation. 85, 90% of my business is referrals and everyone's saying, get Malcolm, he's amazing. But of course, then the customers are expecting amazing from the first email. It's not just like the show. So, but one of the things that I realized, I was like, this couple of things really didn't go well. What happened? And it's like, I realized that I was paying attention, the things I'd been paying attention to before no longer scaled, and I needed to think about other things. I needed to think about more back-end structure in my business, being able to deliver things more quickly, being able to support their businesses to interact with me in a completely different way. So this, and my availability to them, scaling that by having an assistant or somebody that is helping keep that connection. So as we go up a level, and I'd love for you to think about this and maybe think about an analogy for this in sport or something physical, but what are you paying attention to at the level now? When you go up a level that you won't have the time to pay attention to, because now you're going to be focused on a whole bunch of other things. I mean, you work with high performance athletes. what's the difference between, a B level, or let's say an A level athlete and Olympian, and an Olympian? What's the difference between those two things? Because there's clearly a difference.
Yeah, if we look at from this, what you pay attention to, there'll be a couple of key things. Is the first thing that came to mind when you said about that is you pay attention to the foundations and the very basics for a period of time until they become automated. So then in terms of movement patterns and skill acquisition, it becomes automated. So you don't have to pay attention to it. It becomes the automated process that you've created only from paying attention to that for a period of time. But the difference, a big difference, is around the mindset and the thought processes. So do you pay attention to the pain, or do you pay attention to the process? Do you pay attention to the outcome and focused outcome, or do you pay attention to the process? So when you pay attention to the process, you're more likely going to execute the required task at hand. And when you multiply that, the consistency of executing the required task at hand equals amazing results. Focused on the outcome means that you're not going to be able to hit those 0.01% as in whatever it is we're talking about, and not execute the required task at hand, and therefore the outcome that you're focused on might not manifest because you actually haven't focused on the process that the outcome is the result, the byproduct. Nice.
Really nice. And so, and I listen to, a lot of podcasts with, endurance athletes and what they're focused on. And I mean, the level of detail, let's say, that of nutrition that you would have to focus on if you were doing the Hawaii Ironman event. I'm not sure if that's what it's called. But, the triathlon where you're in Hawaii, like how much attention to detail would you have to pay to hydration on that event, Brett? If you were going to do the Ironman in Hawaii, how much attention would you have to pay to hydration? Would you be hydrating days before the event? A week? Like balancing electrolytes? I have got no idea. That's not my world.
It would be a lifetime. It would be all your training.
Right.
So you're focusing on it daily to be able to implement it when...
Yeah. And on the day, you'd have all these strategies of when to hydrate and making sure, and and if you were just doing a local mini triathlon, you just put a water bottle on your bike, because you're going to be fine. And so this is something that I think we all also need to be thinking about. If we want to move our lives forward, what am I paying attention to? And what do I need to really think about now that I'm at this level that I've never had to think about before, which will require me to stop thinking about and paying attention to other things and probably outsource those things or even delete them.
This is when we talk about habit change too. This is what can be really hard with people, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I talk a good talk. I'm not necessarily amazing at this myself, but I'm learning as I go. And this is the beautiful thing about life, is you don't have to know everything at the beginning. And this is exactly what we talked about, is that just keep moving forward, keep gathering evidence. If you actually get good at changing and knowing how you change, you'll be able to manage all the levels. But if you can't manage change and you don't have any awareness of how you manage change, it's a bit like driving with a handbrake on when we could be putting the car into turbo mode and really going fast down the tracks. But we don't need to know everything as we go forward. We can learn as we go. We can build. We can manage change, one change at a time. But become the person that can change. That is actually the most important skill. Humans are the most amazing adaptation machine that has ever existed. That is why there are so many of us on the planet, because we've been able to adapt, thrive, change to different environments, different times, different technologies, everything. But now we cannot manage change unconsciously. We have to become ninjas of change.
What are the greatest challenges that are preventing us from managing that change? Is it external load? Is it that you see often? Is it the internal dialogue that people have about themselves? Is it the wiring of habits and the challenge of that, and it's just put in the too hard basket?
It's unawareness. It's a complete lack of awareness. Yeah. In my opinion, the thing that I see the most is a complete lack of awareness of how you operate in the world. So, as I said before, when I do these talks and I get, talking to hundreds of people every day, they've never known if they're security people or opportunity people in their whole life. They've been living their life, they've been managing change, and they're doing so much of it at an unconscious level that all of those unconscious behaviors are happening without them realizing it. And, for you as well as your opportunity and your wife, opportunity on steroids, it's worked for you. So you keep doing it, but you don't know that you're doing it. You just do it. And you call yourself, I'm an optimist, or we're happy people. You label it something, not unhelpful, but it doesn't give you any ability to strategize with that, right? And so if we look at habit change, I would say with habit change, opportunity people are really good at trying things, not necessarily good at sticking with them. That's been my experience with my coaching clients over the last 25 years, is they love trying things, but they don't necessarily love, it doesn't necessarily stick, because they're really into always, what's the next thing? It says, this is an opportunity. I just listened to the Huberman podcast.
So guilty of that.
Yeah, of course. And then on the security side, we get into looking for the best strategy. So, I've been looking for the best strategy to run a marathon for the last 5 years, when probably if I put all of that time into running, I would have got 150,000 times more helpful feedback than listening to another podcast about running. Right.
That's why when recently you contacted me and said, tell me more about this nose breathing. We've got to get on a call, and we actually spoke, and you asked me all the details of this nose breathing and how it's going to help me run a better marathon. So you had to know the ins and outs and all the science behind it, which I love. I loved sharing that with you.
Yeah. And and then that led me to like a 2-hour Googling session that night, when I could have been in the gym on the treadmill. So I think that...
Not because you didn't trust me, it's just that security personality, right?
No, because I'm so curious. I'm just like a voraciously curious person. I need to know about everything. So if I start investigating things, I get like obsessive about it, But I think when we talk about habit change, I believe that because we're so unconscious about our own operating system, most people don't know if they're a PC or a Mac, right? And so they don't even know how it works. They just keep using it, and this level of unconsciousness is a huge problem now, because you can't be unaware of your change style. You can't be unaware of how you get things done. You have to understand your own style if you're going to be able to optimize it and manage it and elevate it and use it to your best advantage. Every single person that I know that tries to achieve something at a really high level, quickly realizes that they're the obstacle. There is no lack of opportunity in the marketplace. There's no lack of people for me to call, hire, outsource to. There's no lack of books. There's no lack of information. There's no lack of opportunity to market my business. There's no lack of podcasts to talk on. If there's an obstacle in your business, it's staring you in the face every time you look in the mirror. You are the obstacle. Your ability to grow, change, iterate, thrive, that is what we're working with. So become conscious. Please wake up to your own style, your own strategies. And if you need a coach to do that, get a coach to do that. It is the best investment you could possibly make. And why do people hire you as a performance coach? Because you can see things that they can't. You can help them focus on what's the important thing to focus on. And in a world of distraction, we're all going to need help to do that.
Yeah, I love that saying that when you're inside the jar, you can't read the label. So I say to people, I'm outside the jar. You're inside the jar running this amazing business and doing great in life, and I'm outside reading the label a little bit differently. And from this perspective, there's a little shift that we can make. From this perspective, there's these areas we can focus on. And hearing you talk through it, I realise I use these strategies in my life and in my coaching. And now you've brought a higher level of awareness to me of where I don't use those strategies in regards to my strategies around managing change. So that's beautiful. I always say to people, awareness is a superpower. And if the only thing that is improved after we work together is that you're more aware, then that's huge. That's a win in itself if you use that awareness.
Yeah, and I think as well that one of the great things is once you make something consciously aware, all these unconscious programs, once you see it, it can never go back below the surface. You might fall asleep for a while, but you're always going to know that you know it. And I think that as we bring those unconscious behaviors, patterns, strategies up into conscious awareness, we've now given ourselves the gift of waking up in a part of our life where we were previously asleep. And because it's now conscious, because we brought it out and we've named it and we've looked at it, it can never go back under the surface of the water. It's always available there for us to just pick up whenever we want to.
I love that. I love it. And on that, the things that we spoke about around strategy and you utilize things for their ability to scale, but they'll only scale to a certain point, or will they scale at all? I'm curious to know what's something of a skill or strategy of yours that you have tried that has either got to a certain point and then wouldn't scale anymore, or wouldn't scale, some habits or strategies that you've used in recent times?
Oh, do you want the alphabetical list or? Look, I think, let me just sort of, as the journey of my business, one of the journey of my business was to always personalize the talks as much as possible towards the audience. Now, obviously, when you're doing 10 talks a year, you can do a lot of personalization. When you're doing 200 talks a year, that's going to be much more difficult. And so I think I had to change the level of expectation I had about myself, about what I could give customers and what I could promise customers if I was going to do my work at scale. Because I was the obstacle, and I was the one, I never not delivered to the customer. As I said on my last podcast, that's really against my values. But my life stopped working because I was just over-delivering to customers and under-delivering to myself and my family and my life. And so at a certain point, I really had to think about how can I deliver to every audience something special that doesn't require all the pre-planning in the background, and build it into the way that I run workshops and execute workshops. And that is just an example of for a while it didn't feel the same. And it took quite a long while for me to make an emotional connection to this new way of working, because it does work. It works really, really well. But it wasn't what I did before. And so there was a period of time where I had to sit in this discomfort of not doing what I did before. It doesn't feel the same. And what I realized was that all the preparation that I was doing before the event, the personalization, was what gave me the confidence to walk on stage and know that I could do an amazing talk. And so then I gave up some of that preparation, had to live in the uncertainty of being not unconfident, because I've never been unconfident in that sense, but a little less certain about how it would land with the audience, let's put it that way. But now I can walk into any room and I have built strategies where I can quickly get feedback and information from the audience, which allows me to give them a very personalized, individualized session. So I think that, that's just an example where I really had to change my habits so that I could grow and scale, and the uncomfort or discomfort I went through on that little transition that, took a year or two to do.
I love that. And back to the sports analogies or physical analogies when I'm working with people, from teaching them a new skill, and in regards to many different things, actually, not just the physical aspects. And you say to people, okay, you've tried something different here. How does that feel? Oh, it feels weird, or it feels different. And my response is always, good. That means you've changed. Because if it didn't feel different, then you haven't made the change. So we haven't made that step in the right direction. So that feeling that you talk about is in alignment with that saying of embrace the struggle, because sometimes those little struggles is the point that you need to experience to get to that next level.
Yeah, and I really don't like this expression, the comfort zone, because I think the comfort zone is like this really like fluffy concept. The comfort zone is simply the known. There's only two places you live in your life, in the known or the unknown, right? And so when people say get out of your comfort zone, it's like we're going into the unknown, uncertainty. So there's just certainty and uncertainty, known and unknown. So when people say you get out of your comfort zone, I think that's a very fluffy thing. But if we just say get out of the known, that's really easy to quantify. That's really easy to measure. Am I doing something different? Am I behaving in a way that I haven't behaved before? So in that sense, we can get rid of the comfort zone and just talk about, we're going to get you out of the known and into the unknown, which means you're going to move from certainty to uncertainty. If it feels uncertain, we're in the right place.
And there will be certainty in other areas of your life, and we'll come back to some level of certainty to allow you to adapt to that growth, and then we shift again.
Exactly. Yeah. The uncertainty will become known. It'll become known. You'll become friends with it. Then it'll become normal. Then you'll become certain. Next. Repeat. Rinse and repeat. That's all there is. And that's managing change, right?
Yeah, I love that. I think that fluffy piece about it as well. And it's funny, because my wife and I would often say that she would say, we go back to her hometown in Avdolen in Sweden, and she feels like, but I'm in my comfort zone, but it feels really good, like I'm doing really great things. And we're like, is it really a comfort zone if you're actually providing value and living in alignment and creating fulfillment? And in actual fact, that there's a lot of unknown around how it will land. She has to step into the unknown to learn new skills and strategies and everything to bring back to a different environment. Well,
actually, this is something, and we can end on this, is really around this growth mindset. And you probably read Mindset by Carol Dweck. Famous book about growth. Yep. And there's lots of TED Talks about growth mindset you can see with her. But, one of the things that people don't understand about growth mindset is it's a little bit bad branding, because there's actually two components to it, which is growth mindset is your thought process, that you manage your thoughts and emotions around uncertainty and you do things. But the other part is that every time you do that, you rewire and reconfigure your brain. So growth mindset is the driver gets smart, but the car also performs better because the driver got smarter. And would someone like your wife, who's constantly pushing herself into new areas because she's a super, opportunity person, loves growth, loves opportunity, always pushing forward, she's actually not only practicing the thought processes and emotional control that goes with growth mindset, but she's rewiring her brain and optimizing her brain to like change and to be comfortable with the way her life is, right? It's like, and so I think that's also something just to be aware of is that just because you're comfortable doesn't mean you're satisfied, or you don't see another level, or you won't get juiced about something else. You don't need to feel stressed to be growing.
Brilliant.
Like not stressed in that way. of being worried or, and to be honest, like, I don't really need my business to grow anymore. I just grow it because it's fun. Like, I could just do what I'm doing for the next 20 years and I'd probably make a really good living, but I just want to experience more. So I do new things and I'm going to try new things and I'm going to see how far I can push it just because I want the experience of it.
And the mission of impacting the lives of millions of people and seeing them, I can't remember the exact words, but let's just say seeing them go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. All of that, and you can go further and further along that mission. And, at some point, I will change the vehicle of how I do it. I'm not going to do talks forever. I'm not going to do this forever. Everything changes. You're not going to be a performance coach forever. Maybe you become an author instead because you realize, well, if I write books, they're going to be around for 100 years longer than me, and they can, whatever it is.
Yeah.
We're all going to change and grow to make our mission continue to go forward. But enjoy the journey, get good at changing, adapt, so that your mission can actually thrive and function in a world that is going to disrupt you in ways that you cannot imagine, because you cannot imagine what the world is going to look like in the next 10, 15, 20 years. We're in for a bumpy ride, I think.
Well, we're all going to handle that ride much better because of your input on this podcast and everything that you're doing and still impacting, mate. So just a couple of quick questions as we do wrap up, and you might have just answered it, but one of the things I like to ask the guests is, in relation to the unbeatable philosophies, to live your unbeatable life is not to be bulletproof and to push and strive like what we have been talking about that can burn us out. To live unbeatable is to experience life's challenges, life's adversities, the small ones, the big ones, the change, as you talk about, and not be beaten by it. So having tools and strategies in our life to be able to handle that. So what's one or two key things that you would say to the listeners that they could look at implementing straight away to help them create and live their unbeatable lives?
Yeah, well, I mean, I really think being able to, as we talked about, being aware of how you manage change is like really just such a fundamental thing. I think it's really, really important not to focus on happiness. I think there's a cult of happiness that we see online that is sold to us as consumerism, as, I don't know, the next trend, the next thing. Find things that are deeply fulfilling. Fulfillment beats happiness every day of the week. I promise you. Because if you feel fulfilled, you can have a bad day and it doesn't affect you. You can manage it. It's just a bad day. But if you're not fulfilled and you have a bad day, it's going to load on you and you'll carry it around. And I also just want to let everybody know that they've survived 100% of the challenges that they've ever gone through. If you're listening to this, you've already survived 100%. You have an absolutely spotless record. No matter how bumpy it got or how much you crashed into the guardrails as you went down that road. And we talked last time, and I would just want to bring this up again, is that we tend to remember the super high points of our life and the super low points. And there's a whole lot of middle that we ignore. And there's so much valuable stuff in that middle. Like, let's just say, I tried to run a marathon 2 years ago and I only got to 28 kilometers and I had to stop. And it's like, it's so disappointing. It's like, but hang on, that's the furthest I've ever run in my life. And all the things I learned in the training to do that first attempt at a marathon have given me knowledge, wisdom, and experience to bring to my next attempt. And if my next attempt I get to 29 kilometers, I got better. Even if I don't finish, if I get to 29 instead of 28, it's a win. And people tend to look only at their really, really big wins and their really, really big losses and measure their life against that. But most of your life is a consistent middle that's really, really working. So well done. Well done. Celebrate everything that's working. Celebrate all the small wins. I'm really big on celebrating small wins. My wife and I have Champagne Friday. We celebrate the wins of the week, what went well, what we're proud of. But please be proud of yourself and everything that you've done, because if you're listening to this and you've got a business, you've got a family, you're a functioning human, you've got amazing strategies. You are full of amazing strategies. Optimize them, make them even better, get more of what you want. And my last thing that I would say is run your own race. You do not have to have a definition of success that is anything like anybody else's. You can do whatever you want with your time, your energy, your knowledge, your wisdom, experience, to create what is winning for you. Winning for you might be being a postman and just doing a great job as a postman and going home and being there when your kids get home from school. If that's winning for you, great. If it's only 10 Lamborghinis, great. But whatever it is, it's your race. Do not run someone else's race. It's your life. Use it for your happiness and fulfillment, not for anybody else's version of that.
Well said. I love that. And for people to be able to follow you online, not to follow your line of success, but their own line of fulfillment and happiness, where is the best place for them to connect with you online and follow your journey, or reach out for any coaching or support, or just keep up to date with what you're up to?
Yep. You can find me on LinkedIn, Malcolm Larri. Connect with me. I'd love to get your feedback on the podcast. Please connect with me and say hello. You can also find me on Instagram at @BraveCoach. Getting less and less active on Facebook as that platform seems to be collapsing into its own advertising wormhole. But and I've got a website, bravepd.com, PD for personal development, bravepd.com. So yeah, I'd love for you to reach out, say hello to me. Love your feedback from this session today. It's always great to hear from people. We had some really beautiful comments from the last one, which was really moving. And I think that one of the great things about this time is the ability to connect with people that you hear, that I just finished reading a book, and I emailed the author in America that I loved her book, and it was called Why We Swim, and it was a book about why we swim and why we fall in love with swimming and how humans learnt to swim, and it was amazing. And I just wrote her this thing, and it was great to be able to give this author direct feedback on her book by emailing her and then getting a direct response. That's one of the great things about this time, is we can connect with mentors and leaders and thought leaders and people who inspire us, and I think it's great. I think it's a wonderful exchange of energy and information and experience, and I don't think nobody knows everything. So the more that we can share experiences and feedback and even just good energy, it's a beautiful thing to do. So I'd love to hear from everybody.
Likewise, I'll echo that. So please give us some feedback. And speaking of that, that's why I have you coming on to coach my yearly tribe membership tomorrow. So as this gets released, that'll already have happened. But you've done it several times for several of my clients and coaching groups already, where I've brought you in to share your wisdom and run workshops for them. And it's immensely, immensely valuable. So I'll continue to maintain that connection, and also the calls where we just check in with each other. We had the great phone call recently, checking in. We've had the call of the nose breathing. We sending each other voice messages across the globe, and even when I was back in the country. So I really honour you. And Malcolm, you're a legend. I want to acknowledge you for your hustle and serve mentality, but anchored into this place of honour and in alignment with your values and priorities. And I'll also add to that humility for you, admitting that, I'm not perfect, and sometimes I do choose more of one over the other, and realise that the priorities have been a little bit skewed, but your ability to actually come back to that. So thank you again, and keep shining your impactful and abundant light to the world, my man.
Thank you. Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me on. It's been an honour. Thank you.
There you go, another empowering episode, and thanks again for tuning in. Make sure you check out the show notes for any extra links or information that we spoke about in this episode. Don't forget you can now catch the Unbeatable You podcast on the YouTube channel, Brett Robbo Coach. If you want info and inspiration straight into your inbox on how to live an unbeatable life, you can sign up to receive weekly insights and actionable steps for optimal performance and thriving in every aspect of your life. Plus, first release offers on Unbeatable You courses and live events. Don't worry, there's no spam, just short, punchy, value-giving emails straight to you. Simply go to brettrobbo.com/community. If you find value in this podcast, don't forget to share it around with your mates and subscribe, rate, and review. It really supports the podcast mission massively. If you want to reach out to me personally, you can connect with me at Brett Robbo Coach on social media, and that's where you can let me know who you want to hear on the show. Keep thriving, legends, and as always, remember, if not you, then who? If not now, then when? This is your opportunity to live your unbeatable life.